the American Forces Network Europe presents Countdown 25. A silver replay of the best of AFN's 25 years on the air. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Countdown 25, a special series devoted to recalling the sounds of the past quarter century. The sounds of music, the sounds of comedy, the sounds of drama and of history. The sounds broadcast to Europe by AFN Europe these past 25 years. Tonight, another year from AFN's Sound Scrapbook.
This evening, we recall the year that began for AFN on the 4th of July in 1963.
From the magnificent new Century Hall in Frankfurt, Germany, the American Forces Network Europe, in cooperation with the German Radio and Television, presents its 20th anniversary ball. Featuring this evening such stars of the entertainment world as Peggy Brown, Billy Moe, Bill Ramsey, Angelina Monti, the Irvin Lane Orchestra, Jimmy Casanova, Don McNeil and the Breakfast Club Gang, our special guest, Miss Caterina Valente, and the Hessische Rundfunk Orchestra of Frankfurt, under the baton of one of England's greatest band leaders, Reg Ord. 1, 2, 3.
Keynoting the 20th anniversary festivities was the commander of the American Forces Network Europe, Lieutenant Colonel Robert Cranston.
I'm going to read just one message to you tonight from the President of the United States, the White House to the American Forces Network. I know that Americans everywhere join me in extending congratulations and warmest greetings to the American Forces Network on the occasion of its 20th anniversary. In 2 short decades, this network has established an enviable reputation and a singular record of service to the nation, has informed and entertained our men and women overseas with skill and professional competence, and has presented a vivid and accurate picture of the American way of life to countless millions of Europeans, thereby strengthening in new ways the bond of friendship and understanding among people of the free world. These many achievements are, in a very real sense, a reflection of the individual efforts of all of you who have served and are serving with the American Forces Network. On this Independence Day, I salute you on your accomplishments and wish you continued success in your important endeavors. Signed, John F. Kennedy.
I'm about to introduce to you a woman I have heard described as being the most musical woman in all of the world. I found out it's very true, and I think you will before this evening is over. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Caterina Valente.
The party's over. It's time to call it a day. They've burst your pretty balloon and taken the moon away. It's time to wind up the masquerade. Just make your mind up. The piper must be paid. The party's over. The candles flicker and dim. You've danced and dreamed through the night. It seemed to be right. Just be with him. Now you must wake up. All dreams must end. Take off your makeup. The party's over. It's all over. My friend. The party's over. The candles flicker and dim. You've danced and dreamed through the night. It seemed to be right. Just bring with him and you must wake up. Our dreams must end. Take off your makeup. The party's over. It's all over. My friend.
This Countdown 25 series is an anniversary present to our audience, a present commemorating the 25th year of service of the American Forces Network to American servicemen stationed in Europe. And in 1963, as now, we were celebrating an anniversary. At that time, of course, it was our 20th anniversary. To help us in that birthday observance, many of the top names in show business came here for the occasion. Among them, one of the most popular morning personalities in the United States, Don McNeil and his Breakfast Club gang in person.
From the Frankfurt Casino, the dining room of the Officers and Civilians Club in the American community, Frankfurt, Germany, we invite your family to join the millions of families from coast to coast and around the world and listen to America's favorite, Don McNeil and his Breakfast Club. And here he is, your Toastmaster, Don McNeil.
Good morning, Breakfast Clubbers. Morning to the local track service of the house. First call to breakfast for all of you out there. America with the breakfast club is on the air. Guten Morgen, Frankfurt. Anfang zu die Frühstücken Klub. How about that, boy? How about that, huh? Starting to dig my German over here, huh? Now, if I could only learn to speak English. This is Frankfurt, the crossroads of Europe, where people are always coming and going, and after 5 countries in 4 days, we don't know which we're doing. But after 2 days in Germany, it's very easy, I find, to pick up the language here. At dinner last night, I just pointed to several things on the menu, and in no time at all, I got exactly what I ordered. A toothpick, the manager, and a check. This is the casino where we are. It's the dining room of the Officers and Civilians Club in the Frankfurt American community. And with us are hundreds of wives and children of our servicemen, many of the men themselves, and lots of German folks who work for our U.S. forces here in this whole widespread area.
The Breakfast Club is coming to you from the casino of the Officers and Civilians Club, Frankfurt, Germany, through the facilities of the American Forces Network. This is the ABC Radio Network.
At this time, I would like to tip our hats to the AFN, the American Forces Network, who are our hosts on this tour of military bases. These people have worked so hard to make this possible, and since this program is being heard here in Europe on July 4th, this happens to be AFN's 20th birthday. We say happy 20th to you, and long may you wave, whether it be long wave, short wave, or FM. Isn't that right? Huh? This network follows the serviceman, brings him and his family news, special events, entertainment, education, sports from home, news from other European bases. It was launched on this day in 43 by General George Marshall, the then Supreme Allied Commander Eisenhower, and the AFN grew from one small transmitter in England to a network that now covers nearly all of Germany and France, and its powerful voices up to 150,000 watts are heard in neighboring nations, including those behind the Iron Curtain. Millions of German and French citizens listen to the AFN daily, if only to broaden their knowledge of English. But to the serviceman and his family, this is the link with home. The Breakfast Club is proud to have been a part of AFN's programming almost since it began. And our sincere thanks to Colonel Robert Cranston and to so many of his staff, Fran McLaughlin, Sergeant Major Clay Brooks, and especially Johnny Morris, who's worked night and day to put this whole thing across. AFN, we're proud of you. And just to show you that AFN is getting through to the folks over here, yesterday we toured the Wall in West Berlin and didn't get a chance to say hello to any of the American boys stationed there. But we got in the car, and as the car drove away, I could hear them singing, "Good Morning, Breakfast Clubbers." And boy, what a thrill that was. You know, one of the fellows in the AFN, I saved his name for the last because he's also been so outstanding, a fellow named Chuck Lucas, Sergeant Chuck Lucas. And he's a terrific guy, and he tells me that one of the things that you all look forward to seeing is what you're going to see right now. And that's Aunt Fanny. Come in, Aunt Fanny. Hi, Aunt Fanny. Good for you.
Right, here we are, fellas. We made it. Where are we?
This is Frankfurt.
Oh, well, sounds good to me. I'll have two with mustard. Oh, you mean Frankfurt, the town?
Yes.
What country?
Germany.
Well, I couldn't be sure because at the rate we've been going, I thought we might have just overshot the pond and come down into the Kentucky.
No.
What is this lovely place we're in here?
Well, this is the Officers Club and the Civilians Club.
Oh, officers.
Yes.
Now, set me straight. Are they the fellas in the brown and the blue suits with the hardware on their shoulders?
Yes, you might say that.
Jing, that brings back memories of when I was a girl.
Yes.
And let's not go into that.
No.
Well, say, I'm not going to keep it. I am sorry not to see Delbert. I made him some lovely cookies.
Oh.
Health cookies.
Yes.
Beautiful things. It has ground carrots in, a cod liver oil, gluten, sassafras root. Sound good to you?
Oh, yes. Beautiful.
Really think so?
Oh, lovely.
Well, good, because I made a batch for you.
Oh, no.
One of the most popular songs, as AFN entered its 21st year of broadcasting, was sung by the Singing Nun, the song Dominique.
Dominique, Nique, s'en allait tout simplement. Oh Dieu, pauvre et chantant. En tout chemin, en tout lieu, il ne parle que du bon Dieu, il ne parle que du bon Dieu. À l'époque où Jean sans terre d'Angleterre était le roi, Dominique, notre père, combattit les albigeois. Dominique, Nique, s'en allait tout simplement, routier, pauvre et chantant. En tout chemin, en tout lieu, il ne parle que du bon Dieu, il ne parle que du bon Dieu. Certains jours, un hérétique par des ronces le conduit, mais notre père Dominique par sa joie le convertit. Dominique, Nique, s'en allait tout simplement, routier, pauvre et chantant. En tout chemin, en tout lieu, il ne parle que du bon Dieu, il ne parle que du bon Dieu. Ni chameau, ni diligence, il parcourt l'Europe à pied, Scandinavie ou Provence dans la sainte pauvreté. Dominique et Nique s'en allait tout simplement, routier, pauvre et chantant. En tout chemin, en tout lieu, il ne parle que du bon Dieu, il ne parle que du bon Dieu. Enflamma de toute école, filles et garçons pleins d'ardeur, et pour semer la parole, inventa les frères prêcheurs. Dominique et Nique s'en allait tout simplement, routier, pauvre et chantant. En tout chemin, en tout lieu, il ne parle que du bon Dieu, il ne parle que du bon Dieu. Chez Dominique et ses frères, le pain s'en vint à manquer, et 2 anges se présentèrent portant de grands pains dorés. Dominique et Nique s'en allaient tout simplement, routier, pauvre et chantant. En tout chemin, en tout lieu, il ne parle que du bon Dieu, il ne parle que du bon Dieu. Dominique vit en rêve les prêcheurs du monde entier, sous le manteau de la Vierge en grand nombre rassemblés. Dominique et Nique s'en allaient tout simplement, routier, pauvre et chantant. En tout chemin, en tout lieu, il ne parle que du bon Dieu, il ne parle que du bon Dieu. Dominique, mon bon père, regarde-nous simples et gais, pour annoncer à nos frères la vie et la vérité. Dominique et Nique s'en allaient tout simplement, routier, pauvre et chantant. En tout chemin, en tout lieu, il ne parle que du bon Dieu, il ne parle que du bon Dieu.
It was the summer of 1963, and in Washington there was talk of a nuclear test ban treaty. Among those most ardently opposing the treaty was Senator Strom Thurmond.
That if this treaty ever comes to the Senate, I don't know how many are going to oppose it, but I will be standing there and fighting and opposing it if I'm the only senator in the United States Senate.
Also rallying behind the opposition was the father of the H-bomb, Dr. Edward Teller. He summed up his views this way.
If you ratify this treaty, you will have given away the future safety of this country. You will have increased the chances of war. And therefore, no matter what the embarrassment may be in rejecting the treaty, I earnestly urge you to do so and not to ratify the treaty which is before you.
There can be little doubt that the real passing force in the issue was President John Kennedy.
Our representatives have met at the summit and at the brink. They have met in Washington and in Moscow, in Geneva, and at the United Nations. But too often these meetings have produced only darkness, discord, or disillusion. Yesterday, a shaft of light cut into the darkness. Negotiations were concluded in Moscow on a treaty to ban all nuclear tests in the atmosphere, in outer space, and underwater. For the first time, an agreement has been reached on bringing the forces of nuclear destruction under international control.
At last, America could feel good about a transaction with the Soviet Union in particular, and the rest of the world in general. For it was September 24th, 1963, that President Kennedy's dream of a nuclear test ban treaty was realized. To the surprise of the entire world, half the credit for the new treaty was due Andrei Gromyko of the Soviet Union. AFN's GI audience heard him say,
в том числе вопросов, касающихся европейской безопасности. The conclusion of this treaty, banning nuclear weapon tests, may pave the way to the solution of other still more important international problems, including the problem of disarmament. The Soviet government, on its part, will in future spare no effort and will do everything it can to bring about the promptest solution of urgent international problems, including the problems of European security.
Soon thereafter, the bill was ratified by the United States Senate and was signed by all world powers, with the exception of Red China and France. There were many concerned with the fate of mankind in 1963, One of them was folk singer-composer Bob Dylan. His musical solution to world problems was Blowing in the Wind, he wrote. And the words were sung by Peter, Paul, and Mary.
How many roads must a man walk down before they call him a man? How many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? How many times must the cannonball fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many years must a mountain exist before it is washed to the sea? How many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? How many times can a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? How many ears must one man have before he can hear people cry? How many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
You are listening to Countdown 25, a sound review of AFN's 21st year of broadcasting, as the American Forces Network Europe approaches the conclusion of its 25th year on the air. The American people were lulling in a sense of security and optimism in July of 1963. There had been one somber note, however. On June 6, 1963, AFN newsmen reported that Pope John XXIII had died in Rome. The leader of several million Roman Catholics throughout the world succumbed to a sustained illness, and his loss was indeed felt throughout the entire world. UN Secretary General U Thant was heard by AFN listeners in July of 1963 as he eulogized the dead pontiff.
The most noble life has come to an end, and the spirit of the highest human qualities is no longer with us. The death of His Holiness Pope John XXIII is deeply felt by men everywhere who saw in him a symbol of universality, peace, and harmony.
The new pope was called Pope Paul, and his popularity was increased when he called for a general modernization of the Roman Catholic Church.
Dominus vobiscum, oremus, alleluia.
The world lost one of its great political leaders in 1963. AFN's audience was to hear of the retirement of Germany's Chancellor, Konrad Adenauer.
Ich sage bewusst und gewollt, nicht dem deutschen Volke, sondern unserem deutschen Volk.
Tragedy was also in the news in 1963. Tragedy in the form of a report that renowned poet, historian Robert Frost passed away in mid-November. Recall now the one composition that Frost liked best, as only he could treat his own genius.
Stopping by woods on a snowy evening. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though. He will not see me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the woods and frozen lakes, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his honest bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sound, the sweep of easy wind and downy flakes. The woods are lovely, dark and deep. But I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep.
One-time vice presidential candidate Estes Kefauver of Tennessee also passed away in 1963, he in August. The 60-year-old political great was respected by everyone of both parties, and he enjoyed an international respect seldomly known before. Among his best friends was Senate Majority Leader Mike Mansfield.
The passing of Senator Estes Kefauver was a shock to me personally, and I know to the Senate, his state of Tennessee, and the nation as well. He was a practicing idealist in the finest sense of that expression. His passing will leave a void which will be hard to fill. I know that I speak for all of the Senate on both sides of the aisle when I say that we will miss Estes very, very much.
Tragedy and death did not limit their activities to the well-known in 1963 and 4, for it was during this time that AFN's listeners heard that more than 30,000 people had lost their lives to natural disasters and accident. In the fall of 63, for instance, a dam burst above the well-to-do Los Angeles suburb of Baldwin Hills, pouring several million gallons of water down into the housing development and inundating several hundred acres of downtown Los Angeles. Due only to some prior warning, the death toll was kept at 4 persons, but the loss in dollars was estimated in the tens of millions. AFN's GI audience had a much-needed respite from the snowballing year of 1963. That respite, once again, was provided by music. To Broadway came an old friend in a new smash hit. The artist was Carol Channing, and the show, Hello, Dolly.
Back home where I belong. You're looking swell, Manny, I can tell. Danny, you're still glowing, you're still crowing, you're still going strong. I feel the room swaying, for the band's playing one of my old favorite songs from way back when. So, bridge that gap, fellas, find me an empty lap, fellas, Dolly'll never go away again. I I went away from the lights of 14th Street and into my personal haze. But now that I'm back in the lights of 14th Street, tomorrow will be brighter than the good old days. Glad to see you, and let's thank my lucky star. You're looking great, Stanley. Lose some weight, Stanley. Jolly's overjoyed and overwhelmed and overpowered. And you still get glances from a handsome man. Golly gee, fellas, find me a vacant knee, fellas. Jolly'll never go away again.
AFN's 21st year of broadcasting also brought a new face to Broadway. The face belonged to Barbra Streisand. The show was Funny Girl. The song concerned
People who need people are the luckiest people in the world. Where children needing other children, and yet letting our grown-up pride hide all the need inside, acting more like children than children. Lovers, very special people. They're the luckiest people in the world. If one person, one very special person,
soul says you are half now your whole. No more hunger and thirst, but first be a person who needs people. Special person, a feeling deep in your soul says you are half now your whole. No more hunger and thirst, but first be a person who needs
from the lighter side, 1963 saw the situation in much troubled, long embattled Vietnam start to snowball. It looked as though the situation were going to land in America's backyard. The Republic had known the English since the 16th century, the French until 1948, and it knew some 16,000 American military advisors in 1963. President Ngo Dinh Diem's regime had known 8 years of internal strife, and it became apparent that Vietnam was going to explode. And explode it did. November 1st, 1963, AFN News reported that both Diem and his brother were captured from sanctuary in a Catholic church. Summarily, they were executed. But Diem's wife, Madame New, was not shot, for she was in the United States when the revolt occurred. Madame New and her daughter were the guests of some Los Angeles political leaders and were staying at a Beverly Hills hotel when it all began. From that hotel, Madame New addressed newsmen.
No coup can erupt without at least American incitement or American backing.
Madame New continues her statement after learning of the killing of her husband and her brother-in-law. Her reaction, accusatory, prompt, and fiery.
Whoever has the Americans as allies does not need an enemy. I did not believe them, but if the news is true, if really my family has been treacherously killed with either official or unofficial blessings of the American government, I can predict to you all that the story in Vietnam is only at its beginning.
Secretary of State Dean Rusk responded.
I can say for the record, categorically, that the United States government was not in any way involved in this coup attempt in Vietnam.
On November 22nd, 1963, AFN's listeners here in Europe were enjoying Music in the Air. We now join that show at approximately 1930 hours, November 22nd, 1963.
Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt this broadcast for a late news bulletin. President Kennedy, on a visit in Dallas, Texas, has been reportedly seriously wounded, perhaps fatally. We'll have more word as soon as it is received here at AFN.
Ladies and gentlemen, we rejoin the program presently in progress.
Again, we interrupt this program with more word of what has happened in Texas. President Kennedy and Governor John B. Connally of Texas were cut down by an assassin's bullet as they toured downtown Dallas in an open automobile. Mrs. Kennedy is reported to have jumped up and grabbed Mr. Kennedy. She cried, "Oh no!" Then the motorcade sped on. As we continue to receive word from Dallas, we'll report it to you over AFN.
Ladies and gentlemen, we rejoin the program in progress.
This is the American Forces Network, Europe. To the editor's desk, AFN Frankfurt and David Minot. We are receiving bulletins very, very rapidly from Dallas, Texas. President Kennedy, as you heard if you were listening to AFN a few moments ago, to the bulletins that we presented, President Kennedy and Governor John Connally of Texas were shot from ambush today. It is not known yet whether either was killed. The shooting occurred just a short time ago, we would estimate about 15 minutes ago. Kennedy apparently was shot in the head. He fell face down in the back seat of his car. Connally remained half-seated, slumped to the left. There was blood on his face and forehead. The president and the governor were rushed to Parkland Hospital near the Dallas Trade Mart, where Kennedy was to have made a speech today. AP reporter Jack Bell reported 3 shots were fired as the motorcade entered the triple underpass which leads to the Stemmons freeway route to Parkland Hospital. Pandemonium broke loose around the scene. The Secret Service waved the motorcade on at top speed to the hospital. But even at high speed, it took nearly 5 minutes to get the car to the ambulance entrance of the hospital. Reporters say they saw the president lying flat on his face in the car. It's a bubble type of car, the type the president normally uses when he is driving through the city in a motorcade. One of the reporters said a man and a woman were scrambling on the upper level of a walkway overlooking the underpass through which the Kennedy car was passing when the shots were fired. Mrs. Kennedy was weeping and trying to hold up her husband's head when reporters reached the car. We have received another bulletin from Dallas. Congressman Jim Wright of Fort Worth said both President Kennedy and Connally are seriously wounded but are alive. When the president was taken into the emergency room, a call was sent out immediately for some of the top surgical specialists in Dallas. A call also was sent for a Roman Catholic priest. Of course, we'll be interrupting as we receive further word from Dallas, Texas on the condition of the president. But at the present time, we have nothing definite about the condition of Mr. Kennedy.
The events that ensued that day in Dallas, Texas, are recounted for us now as they were 1 month after the shooting of President Kennedy by AFN newsman Bill Marsh.
He liked to be among the people in huge crowds, and he often went into their midst without considering his own safety. When he and his wife landed in Dallas, Texas on November 22nd this year, his welcome smacked of the dozens and hundreds of previous mammoth greetings he had become so accustomed to regardless of where he went.
The crowds that have turned out to see the President and Mrs. Kennedy have been sizable, friendly, enthusiastic.
Sizable, friendly, and enthusiastic. Another Kennedy success, it seemed. His talent was at work. His wife, Jacqueline, sat beside him in his official limousine that was to take the President and the Governor and Mrs. Connally downtown. Downtown for another speech, another crowd, yet another success on this sunny Friday afternoon in Dallas, Texas. When the shots rang out, all this was changed. So was the modern history of the United States and of the world. The President and the Governor of Texas had been shot. Sketchy first-hour reports from the scene were only able to reconstruct the confusion.
Newsmen some 5 tall lengths behind the President heard what sounded like 3 bursts of gunfire. Secret Service agents in the car following the President quickly pulled automatic rifles. The bubble of the President's car was down when the shots rang out. The President was seen to slump over in the back seat, face down. Connally lay on the floor of the rear seat. According to United Press International, wounds in the governor's chest were clearly visible.
1/2 hour after the shooting, the entire world was aware of the incident. The only question at that time, is John Kennedy dead or alive?
The President's condition apparently is serious. A call has gone out for specialists. And 2 Catholic priests have been summoned to be with the President in this moment. The President's mother and father have been advised that their son was shot in Dallas.
They are presently in Hyannisport, Massachusetts, and are being kept informed as the details are available.
Of course, few details were available, and those that were not significant. The only matter of interest at that hour was still, is John Kennedy dead or alive? And the world waited. Then, less than 1 hour after those first reports were broadcast from Dallas, radio listeners around the world were given the awful truth.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States is dead. John F. Kennedy has died of the wounds received in assassination in Dallas less than an hour ago. We repeat, it has just been announced that President Kennedy is dead.
The huge Boeing jet that had flown the President to Texas was now to fly him back to Washington for the last time. Lyndon B. Johnson, also in the Kennedy motorcade through Dallas, was sworn in as President on the plane. And by the time the jet taxied in at Andrews Air Force Base just outside Washington, D.C., Americans by the thousands were on hand for that last shred of evidence that would make the events of the preceding hours more real, more believable.
Secret Service escort now lifting the bronze casket off the truck, bringing it down onto the field of Andrews Air Force Base. A Navy honor guard alongside. The casket is now being put into a gray Navy ambulance. Mrs. Kennedy is now coming down following the casket. This is the same giant aircraft that President Kennedy used on all of his trips around the world. And now with the sorrowing Mrs. Kennedy accompanying the body of her husband, the Navy ambulance pulls away from the airfield here, heads toward the Bethesda Naval Hospital. President Johnson is expected to come down in just a moment. Coming down the steps now down on the ground. Mrs. Johnson with him. President Johnson coming over to the microphone, accompanied by military aides, Secret Service men. Security precautions here at the airport have been redoubled tonight. The ambulance carrying the casket has gone on into the city, and President Johnson is now before the microphone for his first public statement as President of the United States.
It is a sad time for all people. We have suffered a loss that cannot be weighed. For me, it is a deep personal tragedy. I know that the world shares the sorrow that Mrs. Kennedy and her family bear. I will do my best. That is all I can do. I ask for your help and God.
Help Mr. Johnson was to get, but first the nation was to pay its last respects to the fallen president. Funeral ceremonies were set for the following Monday. Leaders from around the world made hasty plans to fly to Washington. Charles de Gaulle of France, Ludwig Erhard of Germany, Sir Alex Douglas Hume, Great Britain, Haile Selassie, Ethiopia. Never in the history of the world had so many leaders from so many countries collected at one place to pay tribute to one man.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Eternal rest grant unto him, O Lord. And his soul and the souls of all the faithful departed through the mercy of God rest in peace. In the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen.
Who did it? Who killed the president? Few have reason to doubt, for that it was a 29-year-old former Marine by the name of Lee Harvey Oswald. Oswald had shot the policeman who spotted him but he was taken into custody by others and questioned throughout the night. He insisted he didn't do it, but evidence was stacking up against him. On Sunday afternoon, Dallas time, police transferred Oswald to another prison. But the man who allegedly shot the president never saw the inside of a jail cell. He himself was shot by one of the crowd gathered to catch a glimpse of the man accused of shooting the president. Oswald was rushed to the hospital, but attempts to save his life were in vain. He died on the operating table just a few yards from the operating room where John Kennedy had died less than 48 hours before. In this series of bizarre and tragic events, attention was then focused on the man who shot Oswald, a man by the name of Jack Ruby, who had previously distinguished himself in Dallas by being the only man in town who could call himself the proprietor of 2 burlesque houses. But the eyes of the nation and the eyes of the world were not long on Jack Ruby. It was a period of mourning. There was a rash of renaming. Cape Canaveral became Cape Kennedy. The City Hall Square in Berlin, where he declared himself a Berliner, became John F. Kennedy Platz. It was difficult to keep up with the bridges, the streets, and the public places that suddenly bore the name of the late American president, climaxed perhaps by the renaming of Idlewild International Airport in New York, now John F. Kennedy International Airport. Meanwhile, Lyndon Baines Johnson was busy with other matters, as he explained to a joint session of Congress less than 1 week after the assassination.
On the 20th day of January, in 1961, John F. Kennedy told his countrymen that our national work would not be finished in the first 1,000 days, nor in the life of this administration, nor even perhaps in our lifetime on this planet. But he said, let us begin. Today, in this moment of new resolve, I would say to all my fellow Americans, let us continue.
You've been listening to Countdown 25, a silver replay of the best of AFN's 25 years on the air. Tonight, AFN has brought you the sounds of its 21st year of broadcasting, the sounds that began emanating from AFN's transmitters on the 4th of July of 1963. Tomorrow evening and each evening at this same time until July 4th, 1968, AFN will present a sound review of the years it has been serving American forces in Europe. A countdown to AFN's silver anniversary.